When I got to the auditorium that morning, I held my breath every time I turned a corner. My cap itched, my stomach was in knots, and I checked my phone 3 times between the parking lot and the registration table, half expecting something, anything from them. A voicemail, a "we're parking," a "we're running a little late." But there was nothing. Only a text from my advisor confirming my speech was still on. I'd been chosen as the departmental speaker, not valedictorian. My GPA wasn't that kind of clean, but close enough. Honors cords, scholarship recognition, the whole nine. It was more than I ever thought I'd get when I first stepped onto that campus with 2 second-hand duffels and a bus pass. And for weeks leading up to it, they'd been cagey. "It's a lot of driving," Mom had said. "We'll see how we feel." Dad added, "You know your sister's had a rough time lately. If she needs us, we'll have to play it by ear." What rough time meant this time, I didn't ask. I didn't push. I didn't beg. But I did hope. I walked into the prep area where graduates were gathering. Everyone was hugging their parents, fidgeting with cords, laughing too loud. A girl to my left was crying, and her mother wiped her cheek while fixing her cap. Across from me, a guy FaceTimed his grandma while showing off his robe. I smiled at the edges, nodded when people congratulated me. I focused on my notes for the speech. "You got this," someone whispered. But I didn't even know her name. When we walked out in pairs, my breath caught. 3rd row, center left, reserved for family of student speakers. Seats 22 and 23, empty. I sat anyway, because that's what I'd practiced. They'd said, assume they're coming, assume the best, and if not, don't look, don't pause. But I looked. I looked every 10 minutes during the ceremony. I looked before I walked to the podium. I looked again right after, in that dazed moment when my classmates stood clapping and the lights were too bright. Still empty. Still nothing. Afterward, I stood by the east exit for half an hour while families passed me, bouquets in hand, gift bags rustling, voices calling out names and hugging arms tight. I stood under a tree until the crowd thinned, just long enough to be able to say I'd waited. Then I sat down on a bench and opened my phone. And there it was, the first post that popped up. Self-care Saturday with my favorite girl, #mother-daughter day, #spa escape. A photo of my sister Sienna in a white robe and cucumber mask. Mom beside her, glass of bubbly in hand, hair wrapped in a towel. Another photo in the carousel, pedicures. Then matcha smoothies. Then them laughing on lounge chairs. Posted 20 minutes into my ceremony. Tagged location Serenity Spa East View. An hour away, I stared at the screen trying to swallow, not rage, not even sadness. Something deeper. Something more like hollowness, a pit that suddenly widened in my chest like a trapdoor. They didn't forget, they chose, they opted out of me. I could hear Sienna's laugh through the damn photo. I checked my messages again. Still nothing. No good luck. No we tried. I thought about sending something. Something simple. "I saw your post," or "Thanks for making today unforgettable." But I didn't. Instead I stood, took my cap off, and walked to my car with my robe billowing in the wind like a costume I didn't earn. That night, in my dorm-turned-sublease studio, I laid my cords on the bed, took off my heels and lined them next to the ones I'd bought for interviews. I made tea. Then I looked at my phone again. More comments had rolled in. "Love this. Best mom-daughter duo. You both deserve it." And underneath, in smaller print, one comment from a high school friend who remembered. "Wait, wasn't today Lauren's graduation?" No reply. Not even a like. I scrolled back up, looked at their faces, smiling, relaxed, happy. As if they hadn't sent me a 3-word text the night before. "Too tired. Sorry." And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about the graduation. It was about something much older, much deeper, much colder. Because when someone chooses to miss the biggest day of your life to get their feet rubbed, it's not exhaustion, it's erasure. And that realization wasn't a crack, it was the earthquake before the split. My name is Lauren Phelps. I'm 24 years old. Just graduated with a degree in public policy and data analysis. I live in a cramped sublet with peeling baseboards and a window that whistles when it's windy. And I'm used to being left out. I don't say that for pity. I say it because it's the only way to explain why I didn't fall apart when they didn't come. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't text Sienna in all caps. It wasn't the first time my milestones were met with silence, and at that point, I'd become something worse than angry. I was practiced. There's a numbness that comes with being the afterthought, a quietness in your throat that forms after enough birthday dinners get postponed, or piano recitals get skipped, or hospital visits get trafficked away. When I was 10, I got appendicitis. I was alone in the ER for 5 hours. My neighbor, Mrs. Connors, stayed with me until my parents could arrive. Mom blamed work. Dad said Sienna had thrown up and they had to clean the car. That night after surgery, I woke up groggy and alone in the dark. When I asked the nurse where my parents were, she said they'd gone to sleep in the car. They were tired. Sienna was 7 then. Already dramatic, already fragile, in that glittery, exhausting way. I was the strong one. That's what they always said. Lauren can handle it, she always does. It started early. At 5, I colored quietly in the corner while Sienna threw tantrums about the wrong brand of juice. At 12, I stayed late at school to help set up the science fair while my parents rushed home because Sienna got a paper cut and was so brave. She got the spotlight for surviving tiny storms. I got praise for standing in the dark without flinching, but praise doesn't fill seats. It doesn't clap or cheer or bring flowers. My parents missed my first honor roll ceremony because Sienna got food poisoning. They missed my regional debate final because she had a hard week and needed cheering up. They came to her cheer competitions in full red and black gear. They drove her to 3 different prom dress fittings, all in one weekend. When she quit college in her 2nd year, they threw her a spa-themed wellness reset party. When I got my first internship offer at a nonprofit that meant the world to me, I texted them a screenshot of the email. No reply. I followed up the next morning. Mom said, "Oh, that's great, hon. I meant to say congrats, but Sienna's car broke down and we've been dealing with that." Sienna always had a crisis, and even when she didn't, she invented one. I used to believe they meant well, that they just didn't see how lopsided the scales were. But eventually, you stop making excuses for people who've built a religion around someone else's comfort. My role was never the star. I was the scaffold, the background, the person you thank in the second half of the speech if there's time. But I kept going, got scholarships, worked weekends, studied harder than I should have, because I thought, at some point, they'd notice, that if I made myself impressive enough, they'd finally see me. Graduation was supposed to be that moment. I didn't need flowers, I didn't need fanfare, just their faces in the crowd. Instead, they picked a steam room over my degree. After the ceremony, I tried to forget it. Really, I did. I cleaned the kitchen, I vacuumed, I drafted a polite email to my department thanking them for the opportunity to speak. I even responded to Mom's text that came in at 8 p.m. "Sorry we missed it. Long day. Hope you had fun. Hope you had fun." Like I'd been on a field trip. I typed a reply, then deleted it, then typed another, then deleted that too. I stared at her message until the screen dimmed. Then I scrolled back up to the spa post. It had over 140 likes by then. One of the photos, Sienna blowing a kiss at the camera, was captioned, "Sometimes the most important celebrations are the quiet ones." I remember reading that 3 times as if it would transform into something else if I looked long enough. That night, I opened my dresser drawer. There, tucked beside my clean socks, was a small photo strip. 4 tiny squares, faded at the corners. Me and Sienna at the state fair. I was maybe 16, she was 13. I had my arm around her shoulder in the first shot, and she had her tongue out in the last. We looked close, or at least trying. I almost threw it out, but I didn't. Instead, I slid it behind a framed quote on my nightstand. "Work hard in silence. Let success make the noise." And that's when the shift started. Not a scream, not a fight, just a single question forming in the back of my mind. What if I made my noise? Not for them. Not to them. But for me. What if I stopped performing gratitude for people who only show up when it benefits them? What if I stopped protecting their version of the story? Because if I didn't, I'd be stuck in the wings forever, and I'd earned my damn curtain call. I didn't plan it as revenge. At first, it was just a moment of self-respect, a quiet refusal. I got the email link to the official graduation photos the next morning. I opened them alone, eating cereal in my too small kitchen, the robe I hadn't yet put away folded over the chair. The gallery showed dozens of shots, me shaking hands with the dean, stepping up to the mic, the corner of my smile visible even under nerves. Then the final one, me holding my diploma on stage, looking out at the crowd. I remembered that exact moment. I was scanning the 3rd row again, still hoping. I saved that photo. The next morning, I booked a small corner booth at Cafe Finch, the one with the exposed brick walls and dried lavender bundles above each table. It was quiet, tucked away, always half-empty during the week. I wore the same heels I'd worn for graduation and the red sweater Mom had bought me last Christmas. I didn't invite anyone. I brought my laptop, pulled out the picture and cropped it, just enough to frame the emptiness in the seats around me. Then I opened Twitter. I typed slowly, thought through every word, then deleted them all and typed again. Finally, I landed on this. My parents said they were too tired to come to my graduation. Here's me, 3rd row, speaking on stage to a full auditorium, except their seats. Meanwhile, they posted this 22 minutes into the ceremony. Left, me. Right, their spa day. For anyone who's ever been the easy child, This one's for us. I attached the split image. One photo of me under hot lights, smiling through a speech. One photo of them, robed and glowing, cucumber slices nowhere in sight, but luxury steeped in every pixel. I hesitated before I hit post, but then I remembered the text. Hope you had fun. I clicked. Then I closed the tab. Didn't check it for the rest of the day. It wasn't about virality. I didn't expect it to go anywhere. I thought maybe a few friends would comment. Maybe someone would message, "Damn girl, I see you." But by morning, it had exploded. 12,000 likes, 4,000 retweets, comments rolling in like a tide. This is my life. The golden child versus the ghost child. They always assume we don't notice. We do. Send them the invoice for the spa. Some were angry, some were funny, some were heartbreakingly familiar. I felt seen in a way I hadn't known I needed. My notifications buzzed constantly. People sent DMs with their own stories. Missed recitals, forgotten birthdays, sobbing outside hospitals. All of us with one thing in common. Parents who loved loudly when it was easy, and silently when it wasn't. I didn't reply to any of them, just read. Let the stories braid together in my chest like a rope, stronger by each strand. At noon, Sienna called. I didn't answer. Then Mom, then Dad. Voicemail after voicemail, escalating from confused to angry. Then, text from Sienna. What the hell is wrong with you? That was private. You're making us look like monsters. I stared at the screen, then typed, I didn't make you look like anything. You did. I didn't send it. I just let it sit in the message box. Let them sit with it in their own minds. By that weekend, someone had stitched my tweet into a TikTok. The audio was soft piano music and a voice saying, "This is why some of us stopped going home." The comments there were brutal. Mom must have seen it. She called again Sunday night. This time, I answered. "Lauren," she began, already breathless, "you've made this into something huge." "No, Mom. I didn't make it anything. I told the truth, and it resonated. We didn't mean..." "I know exactly what you meant." There was a pause. "You're not being fair." "You're right, I haven't been. I've let you take and rewrite and overlook for years, so this is me being unfair for once, publicly. You humiliated us, and you've been quietly humiliating me for 2 decades. She went silent. Then the sigh. The one she always used when she wanted to seem wounded instead of responsible. "Sienna's really upset." "She usually is." "That's not fair." I hung up. Then I silenced the entire family group chat. By Monday, a small op-ed publication emailed asking if I'd write a piece about invisible siblings. I declined. This wasn't a brand, it wasn't content, it was a boundary. But I did one thing. I changed my Twitter bio. Just 3 words. Not the quiet one. That was my ceremony. Not confetti, not cap tossing, not speeches from faculty, just a table for one, a lavender-scented cafe. A screen lit up with solidarity from strangers. I took my own victory photo. Me, holding my diploma, with a coffee in hand and the tweet open behind me. No filters. No family, just me, in my own light. For the first time, it felt like enough. They planned the barbecue like nothing happened. 2 weeks after the tweet went viral, I got a group text from Dad. "Family barbecue next Saturday. Come by if you can." I stared at the message for a full minute, wondering if it was bait. If they were trying to trap me into walking into a backyard full of tension and hummus. Then Sienna texted separately. "You're not actually coming, right? It'll be awkward. Just wait until it blows over." That was what she always wanted. For things to blow over. For people to move on before accountability caught up. I didn't reply to her. But I did show up. I wore the red dress I'd bought for my graduation dinner. The one we never had because my parents said they were too tired and just wanted to get Sienna home before the traffic got bad. I hadn't worn it since. It still had the tag tucked in along the side seam. I arrived late, just after the grilled corn hit the picnic table. The moment I stepped into the backyard, I felt it. That hush that falls like a lid. Plastic cups froze midair. Someone's kid dropped a chip. Mom was at the far end of the table. She smiled too brightly. Dad stood near the grill, waving with half-hearted energy. "Sienna?" She sat in a patio chair like she was bracing for an ambush. "Lauren," Mom called, overacting. "So glad you made it." I walked up to her, kissed her on the cheek, and said nothing. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. Instead, I placed a small envelope on the table between the ketchup and the napkins. "What's this?" Dad asked. "Receipts," I said. He opened it slowly. Inside were printouts, my texted invitation to graduation, their too tired response, screenshots of their spa day post, and my graduation photo with the empty 3rd row circled in red ink. Mom's hand fluttered to her chest like she'd been slapped. "I don't understand," she said, too soft. "You do," I said. "You just hoped no one else would." Sienna crossed her arms. "Are you seriously making this into a legal case?" "No," I said. "Just clarity." "You humiliated us in front of thousands of people," she hissed. No, I corrected. You humiliated me in front of the two people who were supposed to show up. I just made sure you didn't bury it this time. Dad cleared his throat. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. It was just a spa day. And it was just my college graduation, I said. We all make choices. Mom looked like she wanted to cry, but I didn't rush to comfort her. That's what I'd always done. Made her feelings easier to carry than my own. Why are you doing this now? She asked. Why make a scene? Because for once, I said, I'm letting the scene be what it is. Sienna stood up. You've always been dramatic under the surface. You just finally found an audience. I turned to her. No, Sienna, I finally stopped editing myself for your comfort. She flinched. For a second, I saw something shift in her. Maybe not remorse, but recognition. The table was quiet. All the small talk had drained away. Someone turned the music down like it had become too loud for the moment. Dad finally spoke. You made your point, I nodded. Good. Now here's mine. I reached into my bag and pulled out a frame. Simple black wood, clean glass. Inside was the photo of me on stage, eyes bright, smiles steady, 2 empty seats behind me. I set it gently on the center of the table. No one showed up for this, I said. But I did, and I want you to see it. Every time you plan something and forget to invite me, every time you say, we didn't think you'd care, every time you turn a page in our family scrapbook and wonder why I'm not in it. Sienna looked away. Mom reached for the frame, but I stopped her with one word. No. Dad nodded once, quiet, the first real sign of understanding in his face. I turned to leave. I didn't take food. I didn't take hugs. But I left with something else. My presence. Unedited, unapologetic. And this time, they didn't stop me. I didn't expect the silence to feel so peaceful. After the barbecue, I didn't hear from them for over a month. No texts, no passive-aggressive Facebook tags. Not even the usual updates forwarded from Mom's email with subject lines like, FYI, your cousin's baby shower, or Sienna's new job offer. Yay! They went quiet. And for once, I didn't chase it. I didn't try to close the gap. Didn't wonder if I was being too harsh. I let the silence live, let it build walls and plant wildflowers in the places where guilt used to grow. I went back to work. I reorganized my bookshelf. I even started therapy, something I'd postponed for years because I was always too busy keeping things functional. But now I had time and space. The photo frame from the barbecue came home with me. I placed it on my shelf next to my textbooks and under a small ceramic owl that used to belong to my grandmother. The empty seats in the photo didn't sting anymore. They reminded me that I'd stood on that stage alone, and that I'd still stood tall. One evening, I had a small group of coworkers over. We drank wine, swapped grad stories, and played a game of What's Your Family Really Like? Everyone laughed. But when someone pointed to the photo on my shelf and asked, Is that your graduation? The air shifted. I paused. Yeah, I said. They didn't come. They had a spa day. The room fell quiet for a beat. Then someone let out a breathy damn. But it didn't feel like shame anymore. Just fact. I didn't flinch. I didn't shrink. I just took another sip of wine. A few weeks later, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, I opened the door to a soft knock and saw them, Mom and Dad. No umbrella, just damp jackets and uneasy smiles. Mom held a tote bag, the kind she usually reserved for weekend markets. Dad had his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Hi, Mom said, voice cautious. I didn't move for a moment, just watched them. We were in the neighborhood, Dad added. I let them stand there in the rain for just long enough that they felt it. Then I stepped aside. They entered quietly, not like they used to, filling the room with their voices, assessing and rearranging. They didn't comment on the smell of my apartment or the fact that the radiator still clanged. They looked small. Mom sat on the edge of the armchair, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to get comfortable. We saw the photo, she said finally. Online? She shook her head. No, the one from the barbecue, I nodded. I didn't want to throw it away, she continued, so I left it on the kitchen counter. For weeks, your father finally put it in a drawer, but I kept thinking about it. About what it means to show up. Dad leaned forward slightly. We messed up, not just the graduation. A lot more than that. It wasn't the kind of apology that came with tears or grand declarations, but it was something. You always made it so easy not to worry about you, Mom said, so when Sienna needed anything, it just felt obvious where we should go. I know, I said, that was the problem. They looked at each other. She's not doing so great, Dad offered. Since the post went viral, she's been quiet. I raised an eyebrow. You mean she's uncomfortable? She's hurt? I was hurt for 2 decades, I replied evenly. They didn't argue. Do you want us to leave? Mom asked. I looked at her. For the first time in my life, she was asking permission. That was new. No, I said after a breath. But I need one thing. Anything, she said quickly. I stood and walked over to the bookshelf, took down the frame, held it out. I want you to tell me what you see. They both stared, the silence stretched. Finally, Dad said, I see our daughter standing on a stage, alone. I nodded. And I see us missing it, Mom whispered. I set the frame down on the coffee table. I don't need you to cry, I said. I don't need you to fix the past. I just need you to remember this photo every time you think about asking me for something. They both nodded. Then Mom reached into the tote bag and pulled something out. A small rectangular box wrapped in tissue paper. We were going to give this to you that day, she said. We brought it to the barbecue but forgot. I opened it slowly. Inside was a bracelet. Gold-plated, simple, elegant. On the underside, engraved in tiny letters, Still I Rise. I traced the words with my thumb. Thank you, I said, and meant it. But next time, don't give me something to make up for absence. They both stood. We'll call next week, Dad said. If you want, Mom added. As they left, I picked up the photo again, looked at the girl in the red sash, the girl who spoke without a crowd. She was still standing, and now, finally, she wasn't apologizing for it. I still keep the photo on my shelf, not in anger. Not even as a reminder of what they didn't do, but as proof of what I did, alone. The silence I lived with for years doesn't echo the way it used to. I've filled it with my own voice now. Louder, clearer, uninterrupted. People still message me sometimes, strangers mostly. They say, thank you. I didn't know anyone else felt invisible in their own family. I always write back the same thing. You're not invisible. You've just been surrounded by people who refuse to see. Sienna hasn't reached out directly, not yet, but I hear from mutual friends that she's been quieter. Maybe she's sitting with things. Maybe not. But it's not my job to shepherd her growth. I stopped building bridges that only I walk across. Sometimes, Mom texts me photos of flowers she sees at the market. Nothing heavy, just, these reminded me of you. Hope you're well. And I am. I'm well in ways that have nothing to do with her approval. I'm well because I've stopped asking what I need to do to be chosen. I'm already chosen. By me. And when I look at that photo at those 2 empty seats behind me, I don't see absence anymore. I see space I filled with my own power, and it's enough.